talk about that MSIG that's being proposed by Alcor?
Sure. I can. I've talked to him a little bit. Is Avril here? I invited him to come, but it was short notice, so I don't know if he can. But anybody else is more than willing to talk on it. If anybody else has any status updates.
Can I get a recap?
I'm sharing it on my screen. Right?
An interesting one.
Screen sharing on right now.
Yeah, I want to start it. Should I? Should I not?
Oh, recording?
I'm recording, yeah.
Your choice, whatever.
So that's what we're talking about. As you know, the IBC bridge between EOS and WAC stopped working a while ago. And there's an issue now present where the Alcor team can't manage those remaining funds because they gave the authority of that contract to the block producers or to the majority of the block producers. And they're requesting us to revert the authority for that contract so that they can now take action of that of those remaining funds.
So I have some updates from that, but anybody else?
Does anyone know how much the funds are?
Well, it's all right. So how about this? Can you click on that MSIG real quick, the link? Because it'll at least help explain what it is.
Yeah. Just not,
it should just be a blog.
I'm sharing currently.
Oh, yeah. It's a Telegram window, it looks like. But anyway, so that MSIG is to update the owner key of the usdt.alcor contract, which is the token contract for USDT that Avril and them deployed on WAX. It's a very simple MSIG, but obviously MSIGs don't even give a lot of context a lot of times. But I reached out to Avril and had some conversations. It doesn't have to be owner. Owner's top level. He could get by with active. But what I mostly explained is, look, that is him requesting access to have access to the contract to redeploy, and he's working up the details of this, but redeploy a new contract to remove some IBC functionality of that token contract. If you click on it, it's a token contract. If you click on right under the word date and click on usdt.alcor, and then go to the contract and tables or whatever. So I mean, it's the USDT token contract on WAX, but it's not just a normal contract. Apparently, I don't know. I hadn't seen the source, but he's trying to fix this side of it for the USDT, but obviously just flipping the owner account, and the description he provided was generally light. He's working on some more information, and there's a whole lot more related to this dumpster fire of IBC that we're dealing with. But what that is, as I understand it, I'm speaking for Avril, but I talked to him this morning, doing a lot of work behind the scenes. There's something about that contract for USDT on WAX, which needs to have IBC kind of removed from it. There is also the debacle of what's on EOS, and they're jammed up, and people keep trying to send them. And we're working on some other things to address other pieces of the IBC dumpster fire. But as I understand, that MSIG is about updating the contract for USDT on WAX, basically kind of un-IBCing it and more making it like a normal contract again. As I explained to Avril, yo man, probably going to need a little bit more. I'm happy to support it, happy to help do whatever. but going to try to get, number one, maybe we do active, not owner. Number two is you're going to need to provide, this is what I'm doing, and then this is going to be the contract, assuming it's open source, and this is the plan. Because that's everybody's USDT liquid, quote unquote, on wax. Now I'll take a breath and stop. Anybody disagree? I may be wrong. Just trying to keep up with all the dumpster fires going on. But that's how I understand it, and I talked to Avril this morning.
Why does he need the permission?
Yeah, I was a bit confused that he used, he wanted to claim the owner permission. He could have done with active, but he doesn't even have to get the permission at all. He could just push the changes to GitHub, open source the code, and propose the MSIG of updating the smart contract.
I don't disagree. So that's why I say there are some potential paths to go down to get this. Well, the first thing I said is, man, owner is going to throw everybody for a loop, just so you know. And he agreed. He can repropose it with active, no problem. Probably just put a key on there. I'm not 100% sure if it's just redeploy a contract or if there's some other things. He deployed USDT and manages it. If there's a whole bigger piece to it, is he's trying to deploy some conversion and reclaim tactics to like get the USDT converted to USDC, and because USDT is such a dying, it was based off of EOS's USDT integration and liquidity. That makes sense? So anyway, I don't want to, because again, we're going to have to work up a lot of details about this, about what exactly needs to be done. And then, yes, it could be proposed as an MSIG of 15 of 21, and we just boom, 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 boom. Even if we give the key back or give a key to it, nobody's going to do it unless all of this information is laid out. And that can be. I don't know if it's open sourced or not, but it's not just a normal a token contract to begin with. It also has some IDC, and it's because it was always built to be tagged along with EOS USDT, which was dying anyway. So it's kind of two birds, one stone. Makes sense? And he's working on something to get it flipped over to USDC, which is now the much more supported and native stablecoin.
Yeah, but Kafer is right in this one, right? Now that all those funds are in there and user trusted, and this step was taken to remove the keys, the only way to really do this is to do it properly and not the trust me bro approach. So.
That's what I said, is that look, and there's even bigger conversation about it, but do it right. Technically it's possible, but it needs to be done right. And you're going to have to go through the BPs anyway. But again, I one way or the other, for the love of God, it's got to be way more than that, detail wise. And there's even more pieces to it, which are directly related to the wax VPs, but this whole IBC and bridging and tokens and whatever. But ultimately, and that's why I say I'm stealing some of his thunder. I invited him to come and speak on it, but yo, you drop an MSIG to change the owner key on a contract that has God knows how much value locked into it. I have 5 cents in it, and I'm like, oh, there's real value there. Nope. But I reached out to Avril and talking to him. I mean, he's just trying to solve the problem. So, and he's got so many different parties at the table. It's very, very fun and a thankless job. Let me say that.
But maybe it's in everybody's best interest to like reach out to him and see if there maybe there are guilds that want to help him for some points. I'm sure OIG could chime in and maybe set up like a special task force or something, or a project for this to make sure that it happens smoothly and properly, right?
Oh, give me some points for IBC. But no, right now I'm just trying to unscrew the problem the best way I can. By all means, if there are other VPs that are happy to help, hey, I'm gonna need your help probably signing some MSIGs. But as all of you, well, I guess Nick, you're not a VP, but you function like one as much. Yo, I'm gonna need a lot more information. We're gonna have to figure this out. It was really just more of him firing a shot out and trying to do the best he can, but it's a very complex, complicated problem. So, Ross, to answer your question, hopefully I did. That gives you some context on WTF. He wants to change the owner key on the USDT contract. What? So, don't sign it, I assume. But there's going to be some more details coming out. If anybody else wants to join this party, I'll probably have to catch you up on all of the charred dumpster remains so far. But it's one piece of the puzzle, two pieces. On wax, it's the USDT concept, and ultimately maybe some resolution towards IBC now being kind of decommissioned temporarily. Still be there, but and he's really just looking at it from the USDT side. This doesn't technically address anything about the wax or any other token across IBC, but he was the one. Remember, you have to go back. I mean, it was Avril or Alcor that kind of pushed this whole USDT to bring it over and try to latch onto the liquidity of USDT through EOS, and that tether has been cut now twice. EOS is losing support, and now IBC is cut. So,
well, the intention and effort was great, but yeah.
I mean, here we are. Here's the dumpster fire that's left burning. But again, that's kind of how we got here, and that's why I'm like, all right, I see. And there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot. This is not an easy thing to undo. But to give you some context, that's generally what it's related to. As for that MSIG, sign it if you want. That's your choice as a VP. I did not. I know exactly what the hell it's for. But we'll be working towards, if it's MSIG straight to the VPs. Again, I think the USDT contract's going to ultimately probably need to be decommissioned. And he's kind of doing this shift over to USDC. But if everybody else wants USDT to still coexist, how do you do it?
Well,
Because it was
thanks for that.
USDT to beginning.
Thanks for that comprehensive picture that you have painted.
Sorry, I don't paint simple pictures. I can't do that.
No, that's good. It's good. Thank you. I'm on the same page now. So yeah, good. Thanks, man.
There'll be a lot more to come, and I will be up in your DMs about several different things. So I'm sure you will be well aware of what all moving pieces are going on. But
Well, who else is opposed to sign the multisig? Just because, I mean, the way I look at it, looks like there's like 100K of USD in there. I know for a fact April's fronted more just for buying liquidity. I know he's been here for years, right?
that's what I thought about. I was like, I do trust you, bro. Don't get me
It's
wrong.
not like there's 10 million in there, and he's gonna.
Well, we've got to do it right. I mean, in my mind, it's if it's $5,000 or if it's $100,000, it's still got to be done right. That's the whole reason it was relinquished to the PPs to begin with. So that's my one of 21. But I'm working to better scope it, define it, present it, discuss it, constructively discuss it. Can I throw that in there?
I don't think many people would question Avral, especially like he has all the tokens locked in Alcor and he could take them, right? It's not about if we can trust them, it's just how to do this properly.
And that's my default thought. Now, do remember, that is USDT. So, I mean, anything USDT on Taco or any of the others technically is probably in some way or another tied to it. And again, there's two problems that are being addressed. Number one, USDT and its original idea and inherent support and losing that through EOS to even begin with is the fundamental problem. But now there's this whole IBC debacle that really threw gas on the dumpster fire. So I don't know. There's probably a few more pieces coming too, but obviously these types of conversations need to happen about it. I'm having it. Happy to for anybody else. So anything else?
Just no. Just to summarize that we don't necessarily need to do what Alcor is proposing here, but we can find a better way to update the contract, giving them permissions to update the contract, adding the active permission, right? And then we collectively
don't have to do the active permission.
The contract again.
Don't have to do the active permission.
Right. I mean, whatever he's pushing with the active permission in theory, and some BPs are going to say, no, propose those, and the BPs can approve them and push them through. We don't have to give him permission. We just, either way, it's absolutely going to have to be scope defined. And yes, it could be, I assume that's what you mean, Anders, right? I mean,
yeah, you should push the contract in an MSIG, and you should provide the contract details so someone can review it and verify that it's the same thing that he's claiming it is. It's standard procedure here.
Provide some additional information. I don't know. I mean, if it's got extra magic sweet sauce or whatever, maybe I'd trust you or somebody else to review it. You know what I mean? Anyway, we'll figure out. But yeah, Giannis, what he's saying is that's one solution. Probably not the solution he would support, or most of the others. Nick would. He trusts him. Or no, it was Cav.
I trust him, but I want to verify that he's using the code he's supposed to.
I said the exact same thing to Avril. Is that, look, I trust you, bro. I literally said I trust you, bro. But we gotta do it right, in my opinion. So we'll probably at least provide documentation and plan, information, detail, whatever, one way or the other. Because an MSIG is just going to be, here's a hashed contract. And I hope most VPs won't just deploy that either. You know, I mean, it's going to take a lot more information and a lot more planning. It may be proposed directly to the VPs. It may, I'll be honest, if USDT is ultimately going to go away, and there's going to be a whole lot of work that needs to go along with, and it was Avril's token to kind of begin with, I could see some, well, maybe we need to let him do his thing, but that's a whole different conversation that we'll get to. Once we have all of the details, once we know all of the plans.
If I was Avril, I probably would have done the same thing, just to see, like, well, are people cool with me just fixing this little mess? If they are, dope, we'll get it done. If not, I'm almost positive he'll be willing to go through whatever bureaucratic process that needs to happen.
I commend him for lighting the cannon and firing the first shot. I mean, I have been having conversations for weeks, and we've been getting this information. And like I say, there's a lot of other moving pieces, but he definitely got the conversation started. But I just slid up in his DMs and, all right, man. I don't know. Maybe I'll get some points for IBC, but it's dying, so it's kind of a futile effort. But we need to unscrew this situation. So I'll do what I can.
Okay, so the last 10 minutes weren't so convincing that we should that you guys should sign that MSIG. That was an effect of the debate we just had. So,
well, it's 21 producers. It's up to each team what they think. This is mainly me and Michael that stated opinions, and some agreed with some emojis and things. Others might disagree.
I will not be signing that MSIG. I will say that.
Yeah, I will not sign it.
That's what I heard. A lot of skepticism to transfer owner keys to someone collectively. Yeah. So maybe we can have Avra on the next Tuesday call and talk through a procedure there. Introduce him to our bureaucracy.
The procedure is the same as any contract update with an MSIG. Inform and then propose and then see what happens.
Which he should.
It's not a new thing. I mean, this is
already has
happening on all the Antelope chains constantly, where you have MSIGs to update contracts. It's not a new thing.
I'm just now asking myself why he didn't opt for that way already.
No idea.
So that's what I want to know from Avra.
Sorry, I missed the question. I was responding to Null. What do you get there with the question?
Why he didn't just go ahead and propose an MSIG with a contract change?
Well, it's way bigger. There's a whole lot more information. I mean, literally, this was, I don't want to call it a knee-jerk reaction, but obviously, if he has control of that contract, he can do whatever he feels he needs to do. He's got a bigger plan and vision. So it's not probably just one contract. There's probably got to be multiple contracts. Some he probably does control, some that he may not, that are on different chains. So he's not opposed to it. I mean, he's absolutely down for, you're right. Let's do this the right way. And like I said, I've seen what he's going to propose to you guys to talk about, but it's not in my place to steal all of his thunder. But providing details about all of that and what the plans are, and like Null said, and I think it may be tied to it, is there's a USDC from Solana via Wax Team, right? That seems like a perfect solution for the dying EOS USDT liquidity and path. So that might very well be what it kind of shifts over to. So there's a bunch of moving pieces to all of this, but it does not surprise me why you didn't just propose it and fire it. Mm-hmm. He needs to stop, and he knows that he needs to stop, think about it more, document it more. I'm gonna have to translate it to other languages to get it approved. I mean, there's a lot of work that's gonna have to go along with this. So, welcome to decentralized governance. I literally said those words. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So, just want to bring up a topic. Last week, when I was piecing together, the whole inline bombing and state deltas and Hyperion abuse kind of thing. So the number I came down to was about 100K USD could add 27 gigs of state history or Hyperion history a day. It could be weaponized, right? Currently, we're generating like 4.6 gigs, 27 gigs a day for like 100K bankroll. Like that can get scary pretty quick, right? With $1 million, like you're looking at around like 7 terabytes a month. Keep in mind, we have 27 terabytes right now. So this is something that's fundamentally like an oversight in how Antelope was designed in the first place. No, you're saying state history is not the same as transaction history. Let's try not to conflate those terms. That's true. But the transactions I posted, that little test smart contract, it can be used to abuse either one of them, right? So
it has to do with the use of state, a lot of it, because even though the transaction history isn't like the deltas and storage, when you use state aggressively, so to say, and have no delta on it, it still puts a heavy burden on every single node that has to validate that transaction. That's why you have to have these massive memory chain state DBs, because you have to be able to validate that transaction does work. The only way you can validate it is to do it. So
it comes down to CPU though, right? You get billed for that.
You get billed for the amount of CPU, but again, you get billed the same amount for the CPU that's used to calculate pi versus CPU that can literally crush some state usage. It's more that idea that was being discussed has to do with kind of building some inherent extra cost, not just pure CPU computation time related to state. And that inherently kind of helps address some of the long-term delta use of state, which then trickles its way through state history solutions, yada, yada. Again, makes my head hurt. Bald man's head over here, he listened to it all too. Maybe he can help provide better context. It's late, I don't know. But does that kind of make sense? To tie back into, sorry, I stopped talking. I'm just super busy.
No, it does make sense. It does make sense, but it seems like there's a missing mechanism. We need something to systemically tackle this.
Yes. Yeah.
Because right now the blockchain is it's technically it's susceptible. If someone's got a technical know-how and I guess the motive to do this, there's no money in it, so that's a deterrent at least. But it's it's just going to ramp up the cost of operating history solutions, right? So one of the solutions that I thought could be implemented would be on the EOSIO contract on the blockchain. You could have the same way that you set, your ABI and your contract code, you'd have another table that would mimic it, and it would have a priority history kind of thing, right? So if you have a token contract, you would have priority history enabled, and so this way, whatever data gets put on the chain, it's going to be preserved forever, and that comes with an extra CPU cost or whatever. And if it doesn't have priority history, then that history, all the history solutions would know that it's okay to delete that after a certain period of time. Because fundamentally, if you have, there's let's say game data, that's a more reasonable usage of as opposed to literally inline bombing. It's still a tremendous amount of data that does not, there needs to be some way to reduce it to an extent, not to say that it's useless data, but it's not priority. It's not a priority, transactions with tokens, transactions with NFTs. These are things that are far more immortal, they matter a lot more, and game data is way more ephemeral, right? So I'm thinking if the chain scales, we have lots and lots of games doing lots and lots of transactions. This data is we're just carrying around a giant suitcase full of this stuff, can't do anything with it, right? And it's just growing bigger and bigger. So
I agree. I'll say this as a slight plug, and you know me, passive aggressive like that. That is something that's actively being discussed and trying to be addressed in spring. So as people are trying to progress the software protocol, those are types of things that, yep, they're important. Now that we've got instant finality over there, they're focusing on some of these other things, which may be something Wax is interested in. Just saying.
What were the implications on Hyperion on the EOS mainnet with all those Bitcoin transactions being available or being indexed on EOS? So,
I mean, Hyperion suffered, quote unquote, impacted far less overall. It's state. It's not the deltas. They didn't delta out. They're still in state. So I had a drive fill up, and I was going through, and a bunch of log files had filled it up. And I'm like, why the hell is that EOS directory 100 gigs? And I go and I look at it, and it's the state file. Oh, that's right. EOS now has 100 gig state file. So used to be like, I don't know, 20, which is what loads into RAM, which is what Wax ran into many years, 3 years ago, whenever y'all took off.
Nothing is as bad as ADOS though.
That was CPU spamming.
Wasn't it net also?
Net, I think, has something to do with it. But yeah,
I think they used net or some project did.
I think both. They were allowing people to extract the 24-hour renewable resources that their account granted them. That was their mentality. I talked to them. I worked with them. It was great. But back to Cass. There's an inherent problem, and it's right. It's baked in, and it actually impacts a lot of different things. History solutions, because it never goes away, but neither does that block history. And when you sync and validate the block history, you have to do it. Either real time or in a bulk catch up sync, whatever you're doing. Yeah, you say that, Noel, but I mean, 30 gigs of history growing at 15 gig a day, 30 terabytes of history. I mean, cloud space is expensive still. I mean, it's hard for me to even throw. I mean, I have to buy, 16 terabyte, 20 terabyte hard drives or a shitload of 8 terabytes, even to be able to get 30, 40 terabytes of contiguous space or build a Elasticsearch farm like Sweden has that's 9 nodes deep or something, right? I mean, it has its inherent cost.
It's built to scale, so
it'll do it. But literally, I just spun up 15 years of Bitcoin history in 8 hours in 710
Yeah, but those are 10-minute block times. There's like no smart contracts and a million other freaking actions going on.
I don't disagree.
It's
Ethereum
not apples and
along
apples.
the same line. It doesn't take nearly as long to spin up an Ethereum node as it does a
Wax.
Wax.
No, okay, not as long, but geez, it'll take you days still.
We're talking months to do the same thing for Wax or any. I mean, it's not just Wax. I mean, Telos, right? But you get my point. Is that it reminded me that it's a whole different ballgame. And then talking about the history solutions, which again, who the hell really needs that level of history? That's an argument, right? I mean, valid argument. But it's the cost of state and state history, so to say. And there is an inherent flaw. I don't know. But it's also tied to the memory requirement. So that's why I mentioned that. And I know that there are teams that are on the Wax side that are very interested in, and maybe even working on some ideas towards better memory management. And ironically, Ross, do you agree? I mean, it kind of has some relation to the cost of a node. And it's the RAM. It's not, you're right, it's not the hard drive space. I mean, it's expensive. It shouldn't be discounted. Ironically, it's just part of it. It's the state. And that's what we keep going round and round about. You gotta have, and let me tell you, you have to be a sysadmin once you cross that magic line of not having enough RAM or being able to easily get enough RAM. I just tried to talk somebody who's running their own API node through swap files and all that. Oh no, bro. I tried to get her to read the Ross articles and nope, they just, it's, it's, when you fill up state in the current architecture of Loop 5, it could be crushing. So I definitely think it needs to be addressed, but is that something that the community addresses? It's Kaz.
I think it's a discussion topic. It's an issue, but it's not a problem currently.
Oh, well, it's not a problem until the bomb goes off, but
I remember when EOS was first launched, there was a discussion with Dan about it, about how, everything is in RAM and it's going to, be growing and, this is going to end up being a really expensive type server. And his conversation was on like the Moore's law side of things, where it's going to just be,
Right.
commoditized, whatever. Everything's going to just get big, 128K, 64K is all you need back then. And now it's so easy to get, multi-gigabit PCs. So I think that's where its headspace was at. Just not fast enough at the moment.
Right. We've outpaced Moore's law in relation to RAM, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's a law for disk and memory.
It is.
Sure it is.
It's, and I think two of them are similar, and then the disk one's a little different because it is more long term and more cumulative. But yes, I don't know. I mean, so Kaz, you bring up a very, very great discussion topic. Do you have any potential paths?
Did you? What?
I mean, another angle could be tying, because it comes down to the cheapness of CPU. So it doesn't need to be. We don't need it to be like absolutely like zero game data, zero inline bombing, but just as a way to like lightly taper it, have the mechanisms in place so that it doesn't just spiral out of control. So maybe even something like, I don't know, tying CPU cost or just like the CPU scaling to the actual USDT price of wax with the Delphi oracles. Just because it makes it just more difficult to get biblical amounts of like CPU to do this sort of thing.
Well, I mean, possibly. I don't know if pegging it to $1 cost. I mean, that's hard too. But it's a renewable resource. Like RAM, which was designed to, if you store it, you pay for it, is the idea. But state is different than RAM. So, you don't have any true mechanism other than net to pay for that other use. And even still, that was my statement and concern was, you're going to use CPU to pay for it? Okay.
So what we really want is Crypto-Lion storage solution on using net, right?
They call it Prometheus or something like that.
Yeah.
Pro something. Yeah.
Where you could upload the data using net onto the blockchain and serve it.
Right. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a cross. They basically, just hashed out like a file and then used blocks and net transactions to store all that data, and then had indexers that would just piece the file back together and serve it back out. But, it's kind of like IPFS. Here's the distributed data, but you kind of got to use it. You know what I mean? But it would abuse the shit out of net. You know what I mean?
But that was in the memo, right?
Yeah, it was like they just slapped it into the 4,000 character memo, and then just kept cutting it into transaction after transaction after transaction. And
it's very clever.
You had an indexer, you had to run an indexer, and that was my argument. Was I can't run an indexer in the United States that piecemeals whatever image you upload and serves it. I mean, no, I can't do that. I mean, so anyway, but Kaz, I would love to have your expertise and technical knowledge and brainstorming. These are some of the discussions we have with the people who developed the Antelope stack and now that we're kind of, moving past its finality and, all of that, some of these discussions about what's next, So I know that Wax directly wouldn't, maybe in 4 years. So maybe your conversations could benefit you in 4 years, at least you got that. Or maybe it might bring some light on, maybe there's some value with this collaboration and solving these problems with this tech collaboratively.
Absolutely. When's the next meeting? Where are these meetings? You say with the actual developers. I mean,
Wednesday.
Well, it's open. Yeah, it's totally open. Yeah.
Right. Wednesday
just,
at 9
like
o'clock
Anthill
Eastern.
developers? Is that where it's at, or?
No, it's its own channel. Let me invite you.
It's a
I
node.
don't know about these.
It's well,
node operators roundtable.
correct. It kind of ironically shifted the way so EOS and whenever the ENF and the whole reinvigoration and I don't know, kind of shift over to analog. That all started up. EOS kind of formed all the meeting of the minds into a weekly meeting to coordinate the upgrades needed to do these hard forks. Then nerds like me and Ross were like, oh, for the love of God, these are absolutely awesome. We solve so many problems. And so that's what led to these node operator meetings that we've been doing for, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years now. And almost all of the features that Wax has gotten in 4 and 5 came out of those meetings.
Yeah.
So I was saying, look, guys, this is how it really works, and this is what's coming. And so that was a lot of those fixes. Now we're,
there can be up to like 20 people in that pool. It kind of there's obviously the regulars, but you can really stem the course of development in those meetings. Not like directly. It's not like, oh, this is the way it's going to roll. But you can definitely bring up a discussion point, and if there's enough kind of interest and consensus amongst everybody in the group, it'll totally get put into their development path. And it has. Cool. Yeah. Come along. You'll love it.
And that's what I say. I mean, especially
Amazing.
because they actually did bring that up as a topic that we're brainstorming, totally just brainstorming and trying to figure out.
Wish list. It was the wish list.
Right. And then the technical diving from the super nerds because I was the one that was like, they're talking about state. And I'm like, oh, fun fact. We're talking about state and state history over there. And that's the inherent flaw of the cost of nodes, light nodes, and they're telling you, I hope we can get that recording released. That was a lot of cool shit. Now that I think about it, they may not want to release. And I'm out here leaking out all the info.
So if you ever want a recording of it, you can request it, and they posted it. Just like in that channel, they posted the one from last week when I asked for it.
Did they?
Yep.
Oh, I saw you ask for it.
And I asked for it, and then they put it in the channel. And then I've given it to Noel and to Cass.
I still got to watch it. I'll watch it after.
I didn't think we ever got it.
It's in 360p or something. Apparently, it's lovely.
I think Brian's camera or his internet connection is pretty poo-poo. So
it only comes up with it's only the one screen, and you don't see like the tiles. You just see like whoever's talking. Yeah. It's all good. At least it's there, and there's gold. There's gold in there, right? Because it's the thought process and the path that the developers are on. And you can totally get what they're trying to do and what they're focusing on. What concerns me at the moment is that it's definitely, even though we've got a version 5.03, it's definitely now going to be mainly Spring only. They might they'll probably be doing security fixes and patches and stuff, but on 5. But and that sucks a little bit because there's like cool stuff happening in Spring. The elusive get info 2, it's going to become a thing.
That's true. That's probably one of those features that most people won't appreciate, even as much as I.
Since we're talking about a whole lot of random stuff, there's now a get health 2 for Hyperion that's being worked on. So if you get onto the bleeding edge 350-4, obviously not quite production ready, Michael, but whatever, we're rolling. If you run it, you'll see there's so much more information inside of the normal V2 health, including the status of your disks, the status of the ship node it's connected to. It allows you to automatically fail over between your ships. It's really cool. So
all of those
definitely worth a look at.
In his DMs for the last week is that they're great. Yeah. They're great.
Yeah.
Just so you know, that disk status only works on Elasticsearch V8. So if you're on V7, it rolls back to the old, and a lot of that's there because I broke a lot of shit. So
I just quickly put into the group here. You can query our Wax testnet And I think it'll work. You can see the state. I don't know if you know what the old health looked like, but this one now you can see extra information inside of it, which is going to be really, really valuable for monitoring. And it's just getting better and better and better. We're going to be like, monitoring any kind of misactions in the future. I think, the stuff that we've spoken about here, that kind of stuff is definitely on Igor's not just wish list, on active development path. He's trying to do all things that have been requested of him and the Hyperion team.
It's awesome. Progress.
Okay, what were we talking about again?
I mean, I almost a shift the topic, but hopefully I'll see Kaz tomorrow.
Open discussion about history. And
Yeah,
Hyperion
3.5 and beyond is going to be a big upgrade to the functionality of Hyperion. So watch this space.
The the limits key inside the JSON on v2 health, is it your actual limits per hour, rate limits per hour on those endpoints?
Does he expose?
Yes, I asked for him to add that.
Hey, there's a good one. Good job, Anders. High five. I didn't know that one got added in there, but
yeah, well, it was already in the config, and I wanted that for all nodes, and it made sense.
It only shows the configuration. It doesn't show your current rate limit count.
No, it shows your limits, as in how many transactions you can request and everything.
Yes,
and inline actions and stuff like that from the API side, not the indexer.
Right. Although I'll be honest with you, as a history provider, normally the people that are hitting those rate limits are people you need to talk to and be like, man, are you sure that you're using it in the right? It's like 1,000 per minute or something. I mean, it's achievable. But
yeah, but this is different. It's like, okay, you're getting some of these big transactions, big NFT pack openings with a lot of inline actions. With this, you can see that they actually have all the inline actions provided in the API. Because you can have it in the index, but with this limit, you can see if they are also showing it in the API calls, which all guilds are not doing. They didn't do that before. It was an issue like 1.5 years ago, where I went around and talked to everyone to update it to make sure it happened. But I think if I checked a while back, there was some guilds that didn't have it again. Well, they had a lower limit.
Right.
But if they have a partial, then it's yeah.
You're talking about the return.
Yeah, how much data you get.
Limits.
Yeah.
Return record counts.
Limits. If you can request 200 transactions or 1,000 and things like that.
Right. So you should at least know if you're asking for more than it's ever going to respond. So anyway, yes, exposing more of this. Not only exposing it via health, which is powerful, but obviously, as you've heard Igor talk about and seen, collaborating all this information and this web of, I hear there's a lot of Hyperion servers out there. You should look at the dashboard. So it's really exciting to see it all kind of, it got a new version number because it really is new. Cool stuff.
Oh, isn't that, but what I see on the V2 health endpoint, isn't that what's coming with the next Hyperion update? I think
if you click on Ross's link, yeah, it shows a lot of the extra fields that are exposed.
Okay. How did you access that software update? Because it's not tagged as a release on the GitHub repository.
It's a branch.
You're muted, Ross.
It's a branch, but it's not an official tagged release yet.
Oh, I see. 350.
Literally.
Ross, you're muted.
2 or 3 of them. Ross, you're still muted.
Oh, yeah. I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
No, it's its own branch. If you do it, if you check out 3.5.0 and just build it. that'll run the latest.
But fun fact, he's tossing things in there. It's a live.
It's changing. It's changing like this. It's changing as it goes. Get a message. Oh, look at this cool feature. I believe also that this health uses a lot. It's a lot of a cheaper request than it used to be.
Yes and no. If it's Elasticsearch V8, because he can, and the reason he does that is because I've broken on V7. But if you still use V7,
but V8's been out for like 5 years, bro.
Right? I'm telling you. And V8 came out with this new, you should read the article. It literally says, hey, because this is a really expensive call, there's this new endpoint with this light version or non-verbose that makes it so much quicker. And my nodes with thousands and thousands of shards are exploiting there's a bug in Elasticsearch somewhere that it takes 30 seconds sometimes for my health to respond.
Well, I can tell you that I don't believe you, because you started that statement out by, I read this article. So
no, Igor showed me a screenshot of an article. Igor showed me the screenshot of the article. Right. Now you believe it, right? Yes, I did not read said article, but again, it was some things that were I was noticing that are breaking, even on my i9s, and ultimately, yes, it led to that new feature. But it only works if you upgrade your Elasticsearch to V8, which Ross has a guide for and can help you with, no problem. But
and stuff can break.
I have broken a lot.
Upgrading Elasticsearch is not fun. Updating any database is not fun, I guess.
Yeah, it's scary.
Why am I V7, Ross? That.
No. Well, now you really got to be scared when you go from 7 to 8.
But now I got Igor being like, oh, nope, you need to go to 8. Oh, you need to go to 8. And I'm like, oh, shit, I lost my support for V7 now. So here we go.
Might be worth it just building a new one.
That is a new one.
No, bro. No.
I kept it the same.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Cool.
I got a question though for you guys. Say you would assign someone with providing full history. How would that work? A contract, 12 months? What are good terms to realize something like that?
Lifetime.
Yeah. Okay.
What's the question?
He meant like for a term of running the server for 12 months, Anders.
Yeah.
Yeah, lifetime. It's good.
You're going to take somebody's life?
Get a lifetime deal of running full history and get paid for it. No chance of renegotiation.
I think he's just asking for what you would charge somebody for that.
I think he said terms and things. How it would work.
Yeah, let's clarify. How about that?
Yeah, the term of the contract, like 6 months, 12. How long should such a contract be?
I tried. Year contracts were tough for anybody on almost anything, to be honest with you. Blockchain is tough just because the price is different in a year dramatically. 3 months tended to be what people would agree to, and 6 months was about the max I got anybody, but ultimately we shifted everybody to month. I mean, it's not worth it for me to break your knees over $500 because you're broke, right? I mean, people don't, at least for us, not they didn't like their service, they wanted to continue using the service. They just couldn't pay for it anymore. Okay. So.
Okay. That was a bit of info that we need at some point.
Price-wise, though, to give you a bearing, it was like $500 is what we basically came down to. It was because that's a server, right? You can rent an i9 that I can make whatever it needs to be. Hyperion, Atomic, API. You can also coexist with all of our other servers, but that was the mentality that I used behind trying to, I don't know, dip your toe in the water and figure it out. And it's amazing how broke everybody is, especially after 3 years of winter.
Yeah, this was to go back to not everybody having to run full history as a requirement and just fall back to like 3 to 5 full nodes, right?
Right, to run Hyperion, a full Hyperion. I mean, I started with 2,000. Nobody ever took me up on that. I offered it for 1,000, but I also literally would ask them, if you're going to pay $1,000 for full history, why? What are you doing? You should probably do something different, more efficient. You know, I mean.
Yeah, but this would be like the one for the entire ecosystem. So it would have to have a fallback. It would have to be able to endure quite a bit of load, stuff like that. So.
Right, that's a whole different.
Yeah, but that is what Giannis was asking about.
Oh yeah, exactly. Sorry, yeah, it was out of context.
That's why I responded lifetime, by the way, Michael.
Oh, okay, I got it now. No, I'm constantly thinking about that. So you couldn't follow my thoughts there because I didn't speak about them. But yeah, it's mainly about that change in public API landscape, which we are currently trying to implement, and the most probable solution looks like we are paying a few people to provide full history solutions separately from the guild roster, right? And then disincentivize the points for full history inside the guidelines.
I can tell you.
I can't. So it's important that I tell you that it's not definite. Nothing is definite here. I'm just trying to get a conversation with you guys going to get some info, for a later decision.
I don't think such a term should be shorter than 6 months, considering how long it takes to set everything up.
Well, that's where I was kind of going with some of it, is that we try to use two things on it, and it's just, whatever is what it costs to go and throw that in the cloud hardware-wise. And I don't have as much real-time information. I think Ben was talking about some of it. But, I mean, it's like $800,000 at least. That's if you get a good host and a good deal or whatever. You go to AWS, you pay 2-3 times that to get 30 terabytes. And, I mean, you need another 16 terabytes for the state history server. It's $1,000 to $2,000 a month probably in hardware. If you're not doing like what we do and capitalize expenses, it doesn't cost me $2,000 a month. But if I got to use something to compare it to, I went to go do it in the cloud for somebody and was like, holy shit, you can't even rent 30 terabytes of space on most things, That's more than a spinning Rust. So and then like, Ennis was talking about, all right, if I buy the hardware and I commit to putting that, $10,000 worth of hardware behind it, it isn't just going to be for 6 months, or points to hope that you get, rewards off of BP. And if not, too bad, I think is kind of where, at least as a CapEx man versus an OpEx man.
Okay, Noel added something in the chat, but it won't show up in recording, etc. So maybe he can voice it out. He had his hand raised as well for a while.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that. Noel, are you able to talk, or should I read it? Contracts can know. Okay, Null wrote potential providers would bid against each other for the contract, something like 12-month term. There needs to be a clause 2 where a contract can be cancelled if objective metrics fail. So yeah, that means that you can bid with a better price because you have your own hardware, for example, compared to someone who's hosting in the cloud, and That's
I
a lot
like
more
it.
expensive.
Although I'd say this, if I'm the lowest bid, do I at least get paid as much as the fifth highest person if there's 5 providers? I mean, I don't have a problem. I can do it a lot cheaper. And I mean, if it were $200, $300 a month, yeah, sure, shit, it's better than whatever. But I don't want to only get $300 a month for it just because everybody else is like, shit, it cost me $1,500 to do this. Does that make sense? I mean, I agree and open to whatever. I'm happy to provide context on. We tried to offer it, but it was tough.
I think you
But
might.
yeah, 12 months.
Yeah, I think it's also important to account for it's just not putting up one server. Probably like you will need to have like failover availability, stuff like that. So I think if you're anything under like $800 is probably way too low.
No, it's way higher than that.
Just spitball it, right?
Right. Valid point. And that what I said in the channel was, that's why I have 2 of everything is so when one blows up, the other one's there. Or I can do upgrades or like all of this. I did all of these upgrades over the last week and our public services never went offline. I mean, there was always a public endpoint responding.
One would have to do math depending on requirements to figure out any cost and offload, the cost for hardware failures and everything over time and stuff like that.
That's a little bit the unknown here because we don't know how much demand that central full history API will have ultimately.
You don't make it very expensive a lot, but again, I also question, most people who use history probably really don't even need history, but they just need a way to get historical information. So anyway, I agree, and as a CapEx guy, I more try to, all right, how do I take that into account? I gave up on all that math, and obviously, consume my hardware versus Anders' hardware, it's different. Let's just put it that way. But I could use what it would cost to go put it in the cloud. So that's why I kind of use that as you want a cost for what me running it as a provider is. Me doing all the hard work is the benefit I get instead of Amazon or Hetzer or OVH getting it. But that's the value of the service if you want some type of value to it. For 12 months, how long does it cost me to operate? I'll go along with what they consider it as a value hardware provider. If they say $1,500, cool. $1,500 a month and over 12 months, so that's what? 15 grand? After 2 years, that's, 20 grand. That's probably about what it would take,
Yep.
20 grand in hardware for a couple of years. For, I don't know, 150 terabytes of history. And I don't know if you've seen the stats on what our history servers take, but some of our history servers, tens of thousands an hour, hundreds of thousands an hour. I've had millions an hour, but that's just history API calls, not a chain API at all. In our case.
All right. I'll definitely let you know if we progress that discussion and if any other info I can share with you then by next week or by the week after.
What are
we are? Yeah.
Sorry. What are thoughts on a centralized source of truth for the history solution, like a big table that Solana is using?
That was probably directed more at Michael or Ross or Anders.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of different. There's a centralized source of servers to find that information on, or there's a centralized repository of the data that you can use to try to find whatever information you're looking for. I would say the latter was bdata.1, although I think Stan shut it down because nobody would pay for it. But a centralized repository of common chain data I think you guys were talking about like a Excel or Google file dump on Solana or something like that, right? But it was just the ability to, here's the data. You want to use it lightly here. If you want anything more advanced, you need to build your own ship, which no longer really exists. And then if you're talking about like a centralized, here's all the providers for the network that have validated data that we trust and we pay for, you pay for, whatever. Have you seen the Hyperion demo? I mean, there's some ideas related to that. I don't know what the OIG is thinking under the hood, but is that, I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but maybe it answers it.
Let me kind of I'll rephrase it a bit. Like, well, what if instead of having multiple well, as we currently have like multiple full history solutions, and instead of like having even like a contracted out like 12-month, you know, like maybe 5, well, what if we just had one, literally just one watched over it, and it was something that the nodes could feed data directly into it, and it would validate the data, right? Everyone, all the blocks are like saying, yep, or I mean, all the block crews are saying like, yep, this data is correct. It lines up with what everyone else is saying, and we use one source of truth, and then we have like load balancing to dish out that data. Whoever wants to like fetch history, it's kind of like a question, you know, to what extent should we justify spending lots and lots of money and having redundant setups for the sake of decentralization, you know?
I agree. You don't need 30 Hyperions. I think, isn't that what they're working towards? Is some sort of
yeah, but he was
solution.
talking about Solana. So we ran Solana private chain, and all of the validators send their data through to a Google like cloud instance, and it's called, I think it's called Big Table or something like that, big whatever, and everybody's sending at the same time, and it kind of like checks that there is some kind of consensus with the data that's going in, and there's only one copy of the data goes into the table, and it runs the whole time, just runs, you know. So
but
we were
it's
doing
really
that
there to normalize and expose access to the bulk of all chain data, right?
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
So it's kind of like, and that's why I say more like kind of stands is he was pumping it into like MySQL or something like that.
No, it's more like you, me, and Ross all sending our index data to the same queue, indexing in one Elasticsearch. And in that process, it takes the information from us three and say, okay, we have the same of this, and then we index that, and this one differs, and then we can have a question, why is this different?
That's how it works.
That's what he's meaning. So it's one storage of the data.
Yeah, one copy of it in the cloud.
And then you can have replicas and of that, of course.
Validated by us. Yeah.
I mean, I guess as long as you replicate it out from there, but that just seems, I mean, we have to feed multi-index of 30 terabytes in, store it, and then replicate it back out.
Yeah, it's not 30 terabytes at once. It's just continuously running. It's like a peer.
I get it.
Just pushing it up. Yeah.
Point is, it's a lot. I mean, it's 15 gigs a day of just indexing data. I more think that Igor solutions way more elegant.
Yeah, using query, right?
Yeah.
Right, or even
I
just
agree.
the concept of it. I mean,
and that's currently being built with like all focus and participation.
I hear it's open source, so you could probably copy pasta and make it do 2 of them. But I hear Igor is probably pretty accommodating to a lot of features. But that's my yes, you can do that. But it's so much damn data, and I would more venture down that path versus creating those massive loops around of feeding data in and then having to replicate Elasticsearch back out. Or whatever.
Speaking of history, we have set up a partial history and will move our full history to another DNS. That will happen soon. Right now you have access to both at history.waxsweden.org and api.waxsweden.org. But then we'll only be partial on the API normal one.
And what happens to your full history node? Just new domain?
Yeah.
Okay.
So all traffic that now uses our normal will go to the partial one. And then those that want the full will have the other option, but it will be in the bp.json and everything, so.
What made you spin up a partial node?
The plan to move to full history thingies and everything. The discussion. This has been a discussion for the last year.
Those points
and working on query.
I see. Query in itself looked really nice. There's just one feature, and I don't know if it is too complicated to build it, but if on query you would just create your API keys and they get passed down to the Hyperions, and a rate limit is applied to your key, and that can be bundled with a subscription,
That's the
lovely.
plan. That will happen.
Okay. I missed that info.
It's not now, it's for now is the lean release. This is a full feature for later, where you balance between everything and all the API keys and everything. It's a bigger thing coming, not now.
But yes, it's that idea of if we're all running the same software, why can't we do some consensus and back-end work between us and decentralize as much as possible to provide some sort of a better holistic billable experience for API usage. Null is going to back up the block log to tape every 6 months. I don't even know what in the 1990s hell he's talking about.
Okay. We are in an hour and 20 minutes. Take another 2 or 3 minutes. Any questions on the new version 6 guidelines? Did you all read it?
What's the main changes?
Are you familiar with the content, like the main changes? Yeah, the reviewing schedule will fundamentally change. We're still going to have bi-weekly tech evaluations, but we are also going to have contributions reviews potentially every 2 weeks. So that's where we will process whatever contribution we can find until that date. You may as well take longer to update one of your contributions, but you're not obliged anymore to update your contributions every 6 weeks. However, it is advised to update them before the decay date on that contribution is reached, where we will revisit every contribution based on if the decay date is in the past and then apply the noted decay rate. There will be a decay date added to every contribution, which will be anywhere between 4 to 12 weeks in the future. Yeah, this is the main change of the version 6 guidelines.
Will you add that date in the coming weeks?
Yeah, if you visit the Wax contributions list, that big database, we are currently in process of adding that date.
Will you add it to all projects as well?
Yeah, that's what
Good.
we are currently doing. To every single contribution in that database, we are adding a decay date.
Yeah, then I will show it on my new product viewer for all the guilds that I'm fleshing out.
We also plan to add a comment, so a description to every product.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, as it was kindly criticized by you, requested by you.
There's a lot of things that would be nice, so that's perfect. That date and description would be great.
Yeah, it's just that the process takes us some time. We are working through it, let's say, by category, by different contributions categories. We're trying to align the contributions inside the category by having similar decay dates. We're going through all the contributions, adding a decay date everywhere. So it's a lot of head work.
Nice.
This evaluation. But then I think the big improvement will be that you have clarity about your score, and when it decays, we can have more effective updates because we believe only the contributions that are worth updating will be updated. In some cases, maybe more frequently. In other cases, there's no need for every 6 weeks reporting on an update on Memento, for example, or any other software component that is more complex. So yeah, that's one of the changes in V6. Let's go through that for another second. Let's see.
When you do this, I might have some other things, so I can send some in a DM that you can think about while you're already going through updating everything.
Oh yeah, if it is about the list of contributions database, and if you have any cool ideas or how to improve it.
Yeah, I have some questions about the categories or the. I get confused. There are two terms that you use for categories. One is for product, and one is for like if it's an API and the different filters. And yeah, I have some suggestions for that, but I will take it in DM later.
You're absolutely right about that one. As I just see, there's also a different type on contributions. We have product and ecosystem contributions, which don't exist anymore like this, or the score is the same, but we don't really differentiate between the both. That detail probably needs to be removed. I don't know.
We're also reworking the types in general. So we have the tags now, so we're probably removing contribution and stuff, and have just contributions as one and not split into product and ecosystem development. And then whatever the contribution is defined by the tags it has. So some have API tags. We now added new tags to that. So like hosted or self-hosted. So if somebody is providing some API service as a hosted service that he is developing that's not open source, like Robovsky, for example. Yeah. So we're trying to define more with the tags, so the types are clear to the outside.
Yeah, you have something called image, which the word itself doesn't make a lot of sense until you click on it and understand it's Docker images. Perhaps it should instead be Docker. I don't know. Things like that.
I think we changed that to backup now.
Okay.
No, Docker images. Yeah, right. Yeah, I think that is called image. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, the data on that site is not updated since last week, so it's a static info right now. The one that I'm building on.
You mean your tool?
Yeah, I don't pull it constantly. No need while I'm building it.
I see. Cool idea. Someone could take those decay dates and ping the responsible guild members when a contribution is about to decay.
Yeah, I
and
will
they want
probably
to stop the decay.
build that tool as well for a Telegram bot.
Cool. Yeah, it's only 183 contributions that are currently active and released. So it's just a little more work this evaluation period. I think it also makes sense if next week or the week after, whatever we're done with the evaluations, we plan in 15 minutes in on the roundtable to demo how a contribution should be updated going forward, because there will be no large reports, but the process will remain almost the same. You will only update that one file and you will only update that one contribution. But yeah, talking about standards and formats in that document, maybe we can get more out of it. Adding the descriptions. All right. Yeah, let's stop the recording for today.